Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we are talking about being self-expressive and why it's important in relationships. So the first half of the show, we kind of talked about being self-expressive, letting your kids be self-expressive, letting people do their own thing. And this time, I kind of want to talk about why it's important. So here we go. Why is it important to be self-expressive?
You know, for me, I think that the reason why it's important to learn how to express yourself fully is that in this journey of life, the conclusion I've come to, and so have many spiritual leaders, is that we're all trying to figure out who we are. We're on this journey to discover who am I and what's my purpose and why am I here. And the process of that is to have permission from the people you live with and the people that are in your life to be able to express yourself so that you can decide in each new moment, is that me? No, that's not me. How about this? Is this me? And that's why we're making choices. And some of those choices is a reflection of who I am or who I think I am. And some of those reflections are, some of those choices are reflecting that's not who I am or I'm not that. You know, because we make mistakes, you know, and I'm not my mistakes. But I had to make a lot of mistakes for me to one day decide I am not my mistakes. I had to come to the conclusion that I'm a space of pure potential. I'm a space of possibility. And each new moment, I get to choose who I am in that possibility. Today, if I want to be funny, I'm going to crack a joke and be funny. If something's sad, I'm going to allow myself to be compassionate. And so I think that it's important for us as parents is to give our kids permission to learn how to express themselves, because they're in this constant process of figuring out who they are. And at some point you want your hopefully 23-year-old or 28-year-old or 32-year-old son or daughter to one day come to you hopefully heartfelt and tears in their eyes, and they're thanking you for giving them that freedom to be able to figure out who they are, and for them to come and hold your hand and say thank you for being the mom or dad that didn't judge me, that allowed me the space to finally realize that I'm this powerful, loving, compassionate man with a purpose to serve humanity or whatever it is. So I think that's why it's important, is because we're all trying to figure out who we are. Plus, we're also in a process of creation. We are creating ourselves brand new in each new moment with your choices. And so I think it's important for you to teach your kids how to express themselves in a healthy way so that they can learn how to be creative. Some of the best entrepreneurs in the world and the most successful people in the world, whether it's in business or in relationships, they're very highly creative beings. And for whatever reason, if you ask them what's the crux to your or the magical formula to you being successful, a lot of them will look back and say, you know what, I have this creative side of me, and I learn how to create my way to the results that I'm looking for, that I'm yearning for. So creation and us trying to figure out who we are is the reason why it's important for us to learn how to express ourselves, and then to teach our kids how to be self-expressive.
Yeah, going back to the creativity side, when you're in school, at least in my 12 years of public education, I never really felt like the school system was letting us be creative and express ourselves in any certain way. There was a lot of curriculum and a lot of, if I want to do this, it's going to look great, I think, but I could get a C, so I'm going to do what I think is going to get me an A. So there's not really room for growth and creativity in school.
In some of the traditional schools.
Right, in traditional schools. So I think that from a parent's point of view, stuffing that creativity or suppressing it, blocking it, saying no to it or judging your kids for it, they're not going to have any other creative outlet. Like, 80% of the time of your day is spent in school. The other 20% is at home. And if 100% of your day is being shut down from creativity, then there's not much room for growth to go on and be those successful entrepreneurs and businessmen and women.
That's a great point. What you're basically saying is, if you're spending 80% of your time at school, you're being conditioned to not be creative, or you're being told that you can be creative, but within a parameter. Don't be too creative to out-create your teacher. And that's what a lot of the traditional schools have done, is to create a model or a system to teach your kids to be creative within the parameters that I've drawn out for you. Some of the most amazing schools that are out there that teach their teachers to let their kids be so creative that they out-create their own facilitators or their own teachers. And that's the kind of school you want to be in. And if you don't have them, when they get into your home, you should be balancing that out with giving your kids that space or that freedom to be able to express themselves and get creative like that, because all that's going to do is help your son or daughter learn the tools of how to be successful in their life in all areas, whether it's relationship or business. It teaches them that tool that I think that's lacking in today's world.
Another thing too could even be encouraging them to be creative in school, even though, their school project, they might get a C or a B instead of getting that A. That's a personal thing if grades mean a lot to you and how you want to raise your kids and all, but take into consideration the lack of creativity it takes to get an A sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's important too. If your son or daughter is very creative and out-creates the teacher, and the teacher can't see the greatness out of it, and has a limited thinking and grades them a C, but you see their greatness and thinking outside the box, you might need to explain to your son or daughter, hey, I've taught you how to be creative and think outside the box and think big. And the C that your teacher gave you might not necessarily be reflective of the value that I see in you. So you might have to come in and play that part to be able to help your son or daughter articulate that just because they got a C or a D in that project, you can point out some goodies that maybe they can't see, or they probably need you to point that perspective out to them to remind them to continue to be that creative person.
And you know what? As you were explaining that story, I saw a picture, of a mother explaining to their son or daughter this whole scenario, and I realized that takes a lot of extra work. It's so easy to say, here, do your project, and they do a limited creative project and get an A and you move on. So it takes a lot of extra work and energy to put into raising a kid like this.
When you say like this, what I'm gonna correct is, or I'm gonna try to clarify, I think what you're saying is it takes a big commitment to be a conscious parent, because an unconscious parent, it just takes for you to be able to feed your son or daughter, give them a warm place to sleep, give them clothing, give them a couple rules, drive them to school, and maybe that's good enough for them to just survive. But in today's world, with what's possible for our kids, who wants to just parent our kids to just be able to survive? I think there's a whole new breed of parents that really want their kids, and they're desperately to win, to thrive, to persevere, to become great, to realize their gift, to reach their full potential, to realize what their purpose is. And if that's you, yeah, it's going to take a big commitment to be a conscious parent. It's not good enough in today's world to just do the bare minimum. And I think our kids deserve our best. They think they deserve our 150%. And some of us, we're committed to giving 150% at work. But what about when you get home? How about let's not turn down the switch. Let's turn the switch back up and reinvent ourselves as parents and really help take it to the next level.
And one of the concepts that we've talked about before that you explain a lot better than I, but I'll introduce it, is the concept that of a parent. I totally lost my train of thought, but the concept of a parent who goes to work is, a bulldog at work, super businessman, makes all kinds of money and goes home and wants to relax, but spends no time putting energy into his family.
Yeah, and I'm compassionate for that dad or mom that really works hard to make a great life and bring a great income in and be successful at work for their kids and for their family. But I also want to point out that there could be some prices that you pay when you decide that it's time to relax and recuperate and re-energize and heal yourself. But there's a word called having some balance. And maybe you deciding that some of the prices you're paying is taking away from holding your kids to a higher standard of recognizing their greatness and speaking to their greatness and being committed to that kind of work is not a price that you want to pay. And you just got to decide, where's the balance at? Do I want a healthy upbringing of my kids so that they become strong, powerful, confident, independent, and healthy emotionally, mentally, and spiritually as young adults? Then I might have to pull back a little bit. I might have to, figure out how to balance my day out so that they don't get robbed from that part of me that I could bring home to the family and be teaching them.
Yeah, and another thing that I always say, but especially if you're a new listener, all of the stuff that we're talking about, it doesn't make you a bad parent if you do this or a good parent if you do that. It's just observations and experiences that we have and we believe in.
Yeah, we're opening up a possibility for you to see where do I stop at in my personal growth, and where's the line of full potential, and am I reaching it? And if not, let's have some healthy conversations, and let's listen in on some subjects where people are talking about reaching to those levels from a place of being open-minded. If you're open-minded and you're listening, you're excited, your knees shaking, and I hear a lot of people tell me that, man, when they listen to the show, they feel like I'm talking to them, or we're speaking to them, or we're speaking to their greatness. And then I hear other people that it just goes right over their head. Most of them aren't open-minded. They're really narrow-minded, and they're trying to judge what we're saying and trying to find the value, and they can't. So, personal development is not for everybody. And I'm not saying not for everybody, meaning you don't deserve it. It just means that the timing's not right. You're not ready for that. You're not at a time in your life where you're hungry and you want that, and so it's just not something you're interested in, and you're going to tune in and then probably go right past the channel and tune out. But for a smaller percentage of people that really are excited about that and find the value of wanting to become great parents or become a great human being, we're excited about this kind of stuff because we're speaking their language. And some people are excited because we're speaking a language that they want to learn, that they want to be a part of. And so, if it's not your thing, it's not. And if it is, you're welcome to tune in and also to call us. I'd love to get somebody to call in, have a listener call in and ask some questions. And we just got to give that number out.
Does anyone know that number?
298-5487, 661-298-5487. KHTS, call us in. We'd love to hear from you. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I was thinking about this for a moment. I thought you got to be careful when you're fully expressing yourself. And here's a drawback. You could be fully expressing yourself and giving yourself permission to be that, but without being aware of other people that are giving you feedback of how your full expression is actually landing. Because you could be fully expressing yourself in a negative way, and you just being oblivious to that and not realizing that you being fully expression of yourself is turning people off, or you're going down a path that is not really benefiting you. And when I thought about that, I immediately thought of Donald Trump. And I'm not trying to get political here, but here's an example of a man who gives himself permission to self-express himself, but without realizing that when he's in that mode of self-expressing himself and giving himself that permission, he's not realizing that some of the words that he's using, especially if you're somebody that has other people that look up to you, you have to be responsible for some of that self-expression. You don't. The world doesn't just give you this blank slate to be self-expressive without some kind of consequence coming back too. So you have to do it with some responsibility, and you got to be able to go with it a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I have. As you're explaining that, I didn't immediately jump to Donald Trump. I jumped to people who I get annoyed with sometimes that I don't even know. It goes back to me saying that I resist people's attitude or their self-expression in a way that I don't like. So I can see how some of the things that I do that would annoy other people are, I like how you said, not benefiting us. So it's not benefiting me to act a certain way when I know that it's not going to benefit the relationship that I'm in, which with that specific person.
Yeah, you just got to be aware of the way that I'm self-expressing who I am or who I think I am or what I'm thinking or my thoughts. Am I contributing or am I taking away? And I think that's what you got to look at is the benefit. If am I contributing to a goodness or greater cause, or am I helping, or am I hindering? Am I taking away? Am I, disempowering people? And so it really takes a mindfulness for you to look at that and also be open. If other people are telling you, hey, I really admire your ability to really fully express yourself, but sometimes you go a little too far, or sometimes you turn people off, or sometimes your words get misconstrued, or sometimes the message that you're sending is over the edge. Or so you got to also be willing to take some of that feedback and then course correct yourself, so that when you're fully expressing yourself, hopefully you're doing it with the intention of greater good. You don't want to be doing that to hurt or hinder or cause more fear in the world.
Yeah, and we kind of, I guess I feel like I've said this a ton of times, but it applies. If I feel like if I'm doing something and other people don't like it, or other people say, oh, maybe you should do it like this, I get very, well, who are you to tell me what I should and shouldn't do, or how expressive I can be, and how, so I think that comes though from the negative side, and me not wanting to be open to feedback and not wanting to take a look and say, you know what, it's actually not serving anybody. I'm doing this all for attention, or I'm doing this because I need something, or I'm getting something out of it.
I think that when you're really secure in yourself and really authentically confident, because there's authentically confident and then there's ego confident. But when you're authentically confident, you can allow people to give you feedback. You can let people have their opinion and say, hey, here's the feedback. When you said this, you rubbed me the wrong way, or hey, when you said that, it really got me upset, or I don't think you really knew what you were talking about, or what. They can give you that feedback, and you can be grateful, and you can be from gratitude go, hey, thanks for sharing that, and I appreciate you feeling safe enough or honest enough to be able to come and give me that feedback, and it doesn't press a button. I think it's when you have this big ego, when you have the ego confidence, is when you resist it, and you get tagged by it, and you let them press your buttons, and then you want to defend yourself. So I think that's really the two states that, there's a powerful way to hear the feedback, and then there's a not so powerful way to hear it.
It's challenging though, because even the way you were explaining it and giving fake feedback, it sounds so easy. It sounds so nice but people don't give it that way. So in any form, any way that it comes in, still have that openness to accept it, or accept it in the moment. You don't need to take in that feedback if you really don't want to, but accept it. You don't have to defend yourself or freak out every single time.
Yeah, and one of the responses I teach my clients of how to receive feedback is to have a general response, and the general response is, thank you for sharing. And if you just use that all the time when people give you feedback, thank you for sharing, you actually get really creative with it. Some people can say it with, some undertone, like, yeah, thank you for sharing that. You know what I mean? Like you can, there's that undertone, like, okay, thank you for sharing. But thank you for sharing is a neutral statement to let them know that, hey, I appreciate what you said to me. I appreciate the feedback, and I'll take it on like a jacket and see if it fits. If it fits, I'm gonna use it as a gift. If it doesn't fit, I'm gonna take it back off and put it aside. So maybe later on, when I get to another level, I can actually see it. Maybe I can put that jacket on, and all of a sudden it fits, and it's beneficial to me.
Yeah, and lastly, I just wanted to say before we have to go on break, I have a couple questions, and we're only going to have a couple of minutes to answer them, but I don't have time to ask them right now, so I guess I'll ask them when I get back. Sorry about that. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Hey, welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we are talking about self-expression and why it's important in relationships. So we only have a couple of minutes in this last segment, but why is it important for us to be self-expressive and
like what gets in the way?
and what's getting in the way of it? I'm sorry.
I think that usually it's fear, fear of what people think about us, fear of us being judged, fear of people, a fear of rejection. And then I also think that we have, some limiting beliefs about ourselves. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know what I'm talking about, yada, yada, yada. And we have this unconscious list of all the things that we don't think we're enough of. And so that limiting belief, that paradigm gets in the way of me just being me, being authentic, making choices to decide who I want to be in each new moment. And yeah, if you can be willing to look at yourselves and to challenge yourselves to do that kind of work, you can outgrow that. You can evolve past it. You can heal yourself, and you can get to a place where you're freed up. There's some freedom for you to be able to just choose to be who you are, and love that process about you. Like I said earlier, when somebody says, makes a comment and goes, yeah, why'd you do that? That was weird. And you go, yeah, well, I'm weird, and just accept yourself, some self-acceptance and loving yourself. And I think that's powerful, and that's freedom. That's living your life out of freedom and passion and fully expressed.
I think it also has a little bit to do with learning how to be neutral and then giving a response. So in that situation, when you said, hey, why are you doing that? That's weird. It takes a long time for you to finally decide, you know what, I'm going to start just saying, I'm weird.
But it doesn't have to. And I love that you said that, because for a long time I used to think that it takes a long time for you to develop the confidence to be able to tell somebody I'm weird, but it actually doesn't. It just takes an instant. Transformation is an instant. It's just a clarity. You and I could be doing this work. You've been working on yourself for about 6 to 8 years now, consciously. I've been working on myself for over 20 years. Somebody right now could be listening to the show and be driving, and just something that we said, instantly they can transform from just hearing it one time. So, literally it could take somebody that's practicing for a long time, someone else hears it and they can instantly transform and just start practicing it. You just become it. It's like flipping a switch. And so it doesn't have to take forever. You can just decide right now that from this point forward, I'm going to live my life the way that I choose to live my life. And I don't really care, in a sense, that I'm going to have people's judgments and thoughts about me limit me from making those choices and living myself authentically.
Yeah, and another cool thing is kind of just saying who you want to be, and then eventually becoming it, that idea. So if you know you're weird but you're not comfortable saying it, just say it anyways. Yeah, because I'm weird. And then
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just make that your common response. And what will happen is, after saying that response to people, after a week, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, before you know it, you're gonna stop saying I'm weird. Just when people say, well, that was kind of weird, you go, yeah, yeah, and then just move on to what's next, right? You're just gonna let them have the opinion that you're weird, and choose to see it as their perception, and it's the way that they see you. But you realizing that that's not who you are, or it is who you are, and so what? And then just keep moving on. It just becomes an opinion. It's not a fact. It's not a dig. Some people tell me all the time, like, didn't you get offended? I'm like, no, I didn't perceive it as it being offensive. I perceived it as just their opinion. And so we don't realize how powerful we are from our frame of mind, that we can shift our perspectives or our points of views or our reality to the point that we're invincible. Nothing can touch us. Nothing can stop us. That, we can allow people to have their judgments and their opinions and see them as blessings and be grateful that they're giving them to us. But we don't have to take them personal. It's just, thank you for sharing. I'm not going to be liked by everybody, and that's okay, because I'm still me and I get to be me, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, whenever I'm doing something and somebody makes one of those comments, either they come out sarcastic or trying to point out that I'm weird or what I did was weird, I always just say, I'm sorry. and I'm, now that I know that I can say anything I want, I think I'm going to change my phrase, but I always say, I'm sorry, just in case what I did was offending you, I'm not really that sorry, but
And it's okay, because I think later on you will get to a point where you can apologize, and say, hey, and I think that's powerful. Hey, look, I'm weird. If I offended you, I apologize, and I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna keep, doesn't necessarily it means I'm gonna change who I am so that you feel better about yourself. I'm just sorry that's how you, or maybe I'm sorry that's how you see it, because you can actually choose a different perception.
Yeah, that's mostly more how I mean it. Sorry if what I did offended you or made you feel uncomfortable. I'm still going to do it, but I'm sorry in this instance for this time.
Yeah. I'm going to live my life the way I choose to live my life. That's the God-given right that God gave me, was free will, and I'm going to use it till the end of my life.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on My Conscious Dad. We're here every Friday at our new time from noon to 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.